Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of Your Money Life Coach on eRadio with me, Barbara Mundell. This is your weekly Wednesday inspiration to act and manage your money better. Now today I'll be dealing with a question received from one of our listeners. And the question is, what happens to your credit cards when you die? Now, when it comes to death in a family, there is usually a whole list of processes and things that need to be followed, and is often overwhelming for your family members that's been left behind. Now, today I'm going to focus a bit on how you can make it easier for your family, as well as what is the legal process that happens. So, firstly, just to answer the listener's question, when you die, your assets and your liabilities, in other words, all your debts, is then what they call your estate. So, the person wrapping up your estate will have to say, this is all the assets, these are all the people we need to pay. If we need to sell some of those assets, we will, in order to pay those people, and then whatever is left after your estate's been wrapped up will then be distributed to your beneficiaries. Now bear in mind that there are certain estate costs that needs to be paid. There's a fee that needs to be paid to the Master of High Court. There are executors fees for the person who wraps up your estate. There's all sorts of other fees, your bank charges. There's quite a number of fees involved in wrapping up an estate. So that's basically what will happen. Now, what can you do to make it easier for your family? I've got what I call my life file or my family care file, and that contains everything that my family needs of myself in order to help the executor wrap up my estate as quickly as possible. Now, what does this file look like? Well, first of all, this file has got my last will and testament, so that they know they've got a copy of that, or it contains who has the last will and testament, so that it is in safekeeping and that the original will is accessible to the people at my death. Then secondly, what that file contains is all my copies of all my legal documents, such as my birth certificate, my ID document, my passport, my marriage certificate, any of those sort of legal documents that they will need to clarify with Home Affairs your identity. Then it also contains all the relevant bank accounts and investments and savings I've got, so that my family knows that there's no money that's just going to lay there that they might not pick up somewhere along the lines that is actually part of my estate. Then I've also got a section of list of my debtors, people who I owe, who I've got contracts with, so that they know how to wrap that up. I've got a business section that contains all my business documents, so that they know exactly what to do with my businesses. I've got a section that covers all of my life policies. Now, this is very important that you keep this section as clean as possible. So with Company X, I've got life policy to the value of that, and this is who the beneficiary is on that policy. Remember, your estate consists out of assets and deemed assets. Now, deemed assets, to make it as simple as possible, is basically assets that you don't own at the date of your death, but is due to you as a result of your death. So for example, a life policy will be a deemed asset, and it could be subject to estate duty. So it's very important that you do a liquidity analysis of your estate to make sure that you might have a bond for, let's say, R1,000,000 and a life cover for R1,000,000 to cover that bond, but you're not taking into account the additional charges like the property transfer costs and the executors fees of that policy if it does go to your estate, or the estate duty that is equatable because you had that policy. Because it's not necessarily an asset, some people tend to forget that it is still subject to estate duty. So that's what I've got in my file in terms of my life policies, so that my family knows that they're there. It also contains a section of my funeral plans. With a lot of the loyalty clubs we often get nowadays, there is some free funeral cover included. Make sure that when you sign up for those loyalty programs and they send you that information, that you file it in that file, because it might just be the last bit of money that your family needs to pay for your funeral, or pay for the things that you really, really want, or that they need at that particular time. Then my life file also contains a social media angle. So in my social media angle, I've got a list of my passwords, or I know this is difficult for a lot of people to update, so I've got a digital password storage, and that password remains the same, and that is saved in my file. So, and then I've also got other policies that will need to be cancelled, like my disability policies, because obviously I can't claim from that anymore, my short-term insurance policies, things that protect my car, if there's any mechanical warranties, scratch and dent policies, any of those kind of things you would like to include in that file. And then you can also write letters to your family that you can include in that file. It's basically everything that goes from your day to day that interacts with your life at some point in time that your family needs to know about. So I challenge you, put together that file. It's a daunting task. Make sure you get in touch with a professional financial planner to help you do a estate liquidity calculation. So make sure that you've provided for your family what they need to wrap up your estate, settle the debts, settle your credit cards, and make sure that they actually get part of their inheritance that you wanted them to get. That's it for me today, folks. Remember, this episode is available as a podcast on the eRadio website, which you can download and share with your friends and family. Remember, you can also reach out to us at Your Money Life Coach on Facebook or www.yourmoneylifecoach.co.za. Be sure to post your questions and I'll be glad to assist to answer them.